better. Okay, I'm hoping you can see me and I'm live. With a bit of luck, somebody will message me if I'm not. So if I'm live and you can all see me, just you have to excuse me, I've got a message. I need to make sure it's not because I'm not working. Okay, it seems to be all right. Okay, so I presume you can all hear me. So hello, welcome to my living room. Standing in front of the light. So before I start, I just wanted to do a toast. This is a toast to my friend Luke, who died last year, and it's his funeral today last year. So anybody who's watching who knows him, here's to you, Luke. Hope you're still causing chaos wherever you are. So on to the poems. So I'm doing this because I just wanted to do a thing for Remembrance Day. I've always wanted to, and now that I've actually got the chance to do so, this is what I'm doing. So some of these poems are from the poets of the wars, from the First World War, and all the Second World War ones are things that I took stories from soldiers who sent their stuff into a website and turned them into poems for everybody else. So yeah, the comments, okay, I guess you cannot hear them. So first one I'm going to do is this chap said, I don't know this guy's name. Some names I've forgotten and I didn't note down. Some that I did, and I'll tell you them. But so the soldier who sent this one in, he was talking about the brevity of companions, and you meet somebody and next day they're gone and so on. And he told a few stories, but specifically he talked about one person. So I wrote this about the person he was talking about rather than about him. And here it is, nice and short. When our trucks pulled up in Tobruk, we met a private called Tommy Tuck. We had lots of fun with Tommy Tuck. He was a Tommy called Tommy, and he loved his tuck, did Tommy Tuck, and he could reel off jokes like reading from a book. And when it was time to pull out, Tommy Tuck got in the front truck. A mile down the road, the front truck blew up, and that was the end of Tommy Tuck. Nice and short. But yeah, I guess that happens in war a lot. You meet somebody, 10 minutes later they blow up and they're dead. Common theme. Okay, so the next one I was going to do is Flanders Fields, but I'm not doing it because I've had about 50 goes at it and I just cannot get the fucking rhythm of it at all. It annoys me. So imagine I've just done Flanders Fields. So I'm going to do this instead. Let me see what my notes are on this chap. I didn't put any notes. Okay, so this is a poem called, this is from the First World War. This is called In Memoriam, and it's by a chap called Ewart Allen Mackintosh, who was part of the Seaforth Highlanders, and he died in 1917 at 24 years old. And even before that, his soldiers looked up to him as a father figure. So he wrote this after they stormed a trench, and something like 23 of his men got injured, some of them badly, and 2 died. One of them was called David, and he wrote this about him. So this is called In Memoriam. So you were David's father, and he was your only son. And the new cut peats are rotting, and the work is left undone. Because of an old man weeping, just an old man in pain, for David, his son David, who will never come again. Oh, the letters he wrote you, and I can see them still. Not a word of the fighting, but just the sheep on the hill, and how you should get the crops in ere the year gets stormier. And the Boches have got his body, and I was his officer. You were only David's father, but I had 50 sons. When we went up in the evening under the arch of the guns, and we came back at twilight, oh God, I hear them call to me for help and pity that could not help at all. Oh, never will I forget you, my men that trusted me, more my sons than your fathers, for they could only see the little helpless babies and the young men in their pride. They could not see you dying, they didn't hold you when you died. Happy and young and gallant, they saw their firstborn go, but not the strong limbs broken and the beautiful men brought low. The piteous writhing bodies, they screamed, don't leave me, sir, for they were only your fathers, but I was their officer. I like that one because it's it's very good at the fact that you forget that the person in charge, it is like their kids, and all their kids go out and die, and they're with them, got to hold them and so on. Very not nice thing to be in charge of people and you have to send them to die. Okay, what's next? Who's this one from? Okay, I've got no notes on this person, but it's a thing called A Hymn of Freedom by Mary Perry King. Not all these are from soldiers, by the way. I've forgotten who she was. She was a friend of a poet who wrote poems during the war, but I'm not sure who she actually was. But anyway, she wrote this. Excuse me. Unfurl the flag of freedom, fling far the bugle blast. There comes a sound of marching from out the mighty past. Let every peak and valley take up the valiant cry, where beautiful as morning our banner cuts the sky. Freeborn to peace and justice, we stand to guard and save the liberty of manhood, the faith our fathers gave. Then soar aloft, old glory, and tell the waiting breeze, no law but right and mercy shall rule the seven seas. No hate is in our anger, no vengeance in our wrath. We hold the line of freedom across the tyrant's path. Where'er oppression vaunteth, we loose the swords once more, to stay the feet of conquest and pray an end to war. Aye, don't we all want an end to war? Who's next? Oh, I've got them in the wrong order, but this one's next. Right, so this is one, I'm looking forward to doing this one. This was a chap called Harold Basely Poole, who was in the army during the Second World War. And he sent into this website lots of stories. And I've encapsulated his entire wartime life into this. It's a big story, I'm going to have a swig. So, Harold Basely Poole. I'm sure he's deceased now, but here we go. We signed ourselves up in 1939. The army were happy to take any old Tom, Dick and Harry at that time, even Lefty with his two left legs, who never could stay in step, and the young Jewish lad who went AWOL on day 3 and sent his uniform back with a note that said, "The army's not for me." Until 2 redcaps marched him back, and from what I heard later, he died in his first attack. But after 6 weeks of training, the less said the better, we boarded the Duchess of Devonshire, or the Drunken Duchess, as we called her. After 6 weeks of rolling sea, galley food, vomiting, close confines, other people's sweat, we made it to the Middle East and landed in Egypt, not as we thought, Tibet. We joined the 3rd Tank Regiment and became desert rats, but they put us in the relief crew, so we never did get a go in a tank, and that was that. We were moved to Athens without any tanks, but then forwarded to Crete, where the German paratroopers attacked, so we took to our feet. We hightailed it and made a beeline for the church, where we thought we'd be better off. Somebody shouted, "Shut the bloody doors!" before a terrific blast blew the buggers off. We were then stationed at the airport and given rifles, us odds and sods, and told that when the paratroopers came down, we were there to take pot shots. But then the island was abandoned and we were taken off by the Royal Navy, and once again found ourselves at sea. Later, we'd not long been in Tobruk when the town was surrendered to Rommel by the ranking commander, and we all became prisoners of war. There was an Italian ship, the Pierre Luigi, before the cattle trucks to Stalla Gateby. We were a sorry lot on the 8-day journey, with only 2 loaves of bread between 8 of us, and we all had dysentery. One draws a veil over the arrival at Stalag, delousing, medical checks, intimate searches, all manner of indignity. And after an unpleasant time there, a Aussie born in Scotland, Ralph Dodger Green, and me joined a work party and were sent to Poland to cut down trees. Our lodgings were a 1-storey shack, but later they extended it by jacking up the roof, building another floor, and then lowering the roof back. He was impressed with that. We had 3 guards, too old to fight, so they looked after us for over a year and made sure we didn't take flight. We'd do a day in the forest, rain or shine, then march to the convent, and with other prisoners, wait in line. The nuns served us potato soup which we heartily put away, then marched back uphill with a dustbin-sized container full of gruel for the next day. Our digs only had a wood-burning stove, which we kept constantly on the go. It meant living in a permanently smoky atmosphere, but at least it was warm when it started to snow. And after a year of this, we left Weisswasser because Russian prisoners took over. We were sent elsewhere. We then worked in sandpits, making sandbags for air raid protection, with an excitable 50-year-old factory master who proper swung the lead. And of course, we named him Eggy because of the shape of his head. And he always complained, we were lousy workers, a bunch of British shirkers. Then one day in early 45, we were ordered to pack up and go. So we made sledges, loaded up our gear, and began to drag them through the snow. It was so cold at the time, we wore everything we owned and lined our bodies with newspaper, which was a skill many soldiers honed. The next 6 weeks were a nightmare, constantly fleeing the Russian army advance, often in the confusion, going in circles in a merry old frozen dance. We soon ran out of food, stolen chickens became a thing, with the guards too hungry to stop us, so long as they could tuck in. Turnips and potatoes pulled from the ground, the whole lot eaten raw. Never was a thing enjoyed so much, not now and never more. Then one day in spring, we woke up to find the guards gone. It was the first time in many a year we were being ordered around by no one. We walked for days, I have no idea how far, until we found a working train station and discovered we were in Czechoslovakia. Hundreds of POWs all trying to get home that night, and we found ourselves a spot on the roof and held on bloody tight. A Canadian shouted out jokes and kept us all in stitches, and we'd duck every now and again when somebody shouted, "Look out! Bridges!" We changed trains a lot during the next days and nights, with constant stops for Russian troops to board and search for Nazis in disguise. Eventually we made it to the American lines, deloused and uniforms cleaned, and for the first time in 3 years we had an actual meal. From there it was trucks to the British lines, driven at alarming speeds, which totally took away our breath, by black American gum-chewing servicemen who seemed to have no fear of death. Then another 3 days sat on the hot tarmac, waiting for a plane to come and take us back. It was a Lancaster bomber that came to take us back, and because it was packed to the gills, we travelled in the windswept empty bomb racks. I was eventually demobbed in March 1946, almost 7 years after I first signed up. Thank you, Harold Baisley Poole. Imagine that, 4 years as a POW. He did tell more stories about the brutality, but I left that out. Okay, this one's next. Right, so I wrote notes. So this chap who, I don't know this guy's name, but he actually sent a lot of stories and memories about the war. He sent a lot of nice ones. The one that he sent was about when they got billeted in the chateau in France, somewhere in France. And they raided the wine cellar. So I can imagine that was a fun day in the middle of a bloody war. But he also didn't have a very good time of it, and he didn't really like it all. And so instead of telling his story as a full story, I just took this bit of his explanation of why it wasn't very nice. It's just called Kill. They stormed our trenches, we mowed them down, machine guns, mortars, bodies flying in the air, screams of the dying, screech of the shells, brave war cries, frightened tears, and still we mowed them down. They crossed no man's land, left hundreds dead behind, stormed our trenches and poured in like a wave of death. Out came the pistols, knives, bayonets. We laid into each other like nothing on earth. Stab, shoot, punch, kick, kill, kill, kill. A stab to the neck, a kick to the knee, a gush of blood, a snap of bone, violence, anger, adrenaline, death, death everywhere, so much death, the stench of the blood, bile, corpses, the agony of the dying, our own screams as we killed. We were not men that day. I took far too many mothers' sons, as did we all. I thought I might cry on that one. I'm glad I didn't. Must have been fucking horrendous, being like 19 years old and having to kill people. That's the last of the angry ones. So, who's this one by? Oh, yes. So, the next few are not soldier ones, different perspectives of the war, but excuse my hair, different perspectives and things. So this is called In a Soldier's Hospital, and it's by a nurse called Eva Dobell. She does sound like doorbell, but it's Eva Dobell. And she was a nurse, and she wrote this in 1916, just about that person. Crippled for life at 17, his grey eyes seemed to question why. With both legs smashed, it might have been better in that grim trench to die than... Sorry, I'm going to start this again because it's really important, proper. Crippled for life at 17, his grey eyes seemed to question why. With both legs smashed, it might have been better in that grim trench to die than drag maimed years out helplessly. A child so wasted and white, he told a lie to get his way, to march a man with men and fight, while other boys are still at play. A gallant lie, your heart will say. So broken with pain, he shrinks in dread to see the dresser drawing near, and winds the clothes about his head, that none may see his heart-sick fear. His shaking, strangled sobs you hear. But when the dreaded moment's there, he'll face us all a soldier yet, watch his bared wounds with unmoved air, though telltale lashes still are wet, and smoked his woodbine cigarette. Didn't do that one as well as I liked, but 17 years old, you've lost both your legs. But at least you could smoke in hospitals in them days. Okay, another different perspective. This is interesting because I thought, when I found this, I thought this was an original from the Second World War. And it actually turns out it was written years later. But it feels like it was written by somebody who was there, so I left it in. It's by a chap called Dan McGonigal. And it's called The Blitz. Tenement buildings falling to bits, victims of precision hits. Sirens wailing, people running, smoke and darkness, engines gunning. Anti-aircraft guns are blazing, towards the sky the bullets strafing. A distant rumble just like thunder, another street is torn asunder. Bodies lying on the road, families left with no abode. Among the rubble pets are lying, some in shock, others dying. Despite it all, a sense of calm, people sing a well-known psalm, thanking God for their survival whilst waiting on the sun's arrival. The spirit of them all unbroken, words like defeat are never spoken. Courage born of toil and sweat, pride in everyone you met. A town rebuilt by men of worth, regarded as the salt of the earth. Sorry, my writing, do that first again. A town rebuilt by men of worth, regarded as the salt of the earth, rising from the ashen pits, created by the Clydebank Blitz. Bear in mind, most of these I've never done before, so hence, sorry if I get a bit messed up. Okay, 3 left. Oh shit, okay, this one, right, okay. Okay, so different perspectives, because they're not all about soldiers and the bravery. So this is called Fear. I'll explain in a minute. It's called Fear, and it's by somebody called Eva Pikova. And she wrote this when she was 14 years old in the Terezin concentration camp. It's one I've not heard of actually until I saw this, but the Terezin concentration camp. And so she wrote this when she was 14 years old, and she died less than a year after this in Auschwitz. Let's do it. Fucking 14 years old, shit. Okay, sorry. Today the ghetto knows a different fear. Close in its grip, death wields. Oh, sorry, my eyes and my writing to do this. Start again. Today the ghetto knows a different fear. Close in its grip, death wields an icy scythe. An evil sickness spreads a terror in its wake. The victims of its shadow weep and writhe. Today a father's heartbeat tells his fright, and mothers bend their heads into their hands. Now children choke and die with typhus here. A bitter tax is taken from their bands. My heart still beats inside my breast, while friends depart for other worlds. Perhaps it's better, who can say, that watching this, to die today. No, no, my God, we want to live, not watch our numbers melt away. We want to have a better world. We want to work. We must not die. That one is... Most girls 14 years old these days are like wondering what phone they want, or does that boy like me? And she bloody writes that, and yeah. 14 years old, shit. Nobody should have to write stuff like that, no matter what age they are. Okay, 2 left. No idea what the time is, but I don't care. What's this one? Oh yes, so... Oh yeah, so this is from a lady called Grace Hazard Conkling. It's called Victory Bells, and she wrote this on November the 11th, 1918. So that's, you know, 102 years ago today she wrote this. Just have a swig. So yeah, this is somebody who wasn't in the war. This is somebody who's home, and I guess this must have been a feeling for a lot of people when the victory bells rolled. It's called Victory Bells. I heard the bells across the trees, I heard them ride the plunging breeze, above the roofs from tower and spire, and they were leaping like a fire, and they were shining like a stream, with sun to make its music gleam. Deep tones as though the thunder told, cool voices thin as tinkling gold. They shook the spangled autumn down from out the treetops of the town. They left great furrows in the air and made a clangour everywhere. As of metal wings they flew, aloft in spirals to the blue, tall tent of heaven, and disappeared, and others, swift as though they feared that people might not heed their cry, went shouting victory up to the sky. They did not say that war is done, only that glory has begun. Like sunrise and the coming day will burn the clouds of war away. There will be time for dreams again, and homecoming for weary men. Must have been an amazing day if you were home and those victory bells rolled. Now, you see all the pictures of people on the streets and everybody dancing and stuff. It must have been... I can't imagine the relief. Okay, this is my last one. I'm assuming I've done half an hour. I have no idea, but this is the last one. Thank you, anybody who's watching. Hope you liked it. Hope I haven't made a mess too much of it. I'm going to finish on one of my own, which I wrote, I think 2 years, excuse me, which I think I wrote 2 years ago for this very day. And I guess sums up the reason I'm doing this in the first place, and it sums up the reason we all remember and all that stuff. It's called Those Who Died. I'll never know what debt I owe to those that died. My muddy fields come with Wellingtons and a Portaloo, not rats and lice and corpses. Rain for me doesn't mask the sound of the enemy, it just makes me wet. Misty days will never be mistaken for a gas attack. And lights at night are a welcome sight, not a sign of imminent invasion. And if I go over the top, I'm just being silly. I'm not storming, screaming tracer rounds. I can nip to the shop for a loaf of bread, not steal a crust out of a dead man's hand. I can write poems on a computer screen because one day once, someone was braver than I. I've never seen a friend scream and die in blood-spewing agony, and then another, and then another, and then another. I'll honour and remember as best I can, but I'll never really know what debt I owe to those who died. Thank you for listening. Surprised I didn't cry. War is bad, and hopefully that was a nice selection of people's memories from it. Hopefully I'll do some more next year. I'm going to press stop now, but thank you for listening. Please let's have no more wars. Not that that's going to happen because people are dickheads, but I'm going to come towards the camera now and scare you with my face and then press stop. Thank you for listening. And I hope you dug it.